and spread ill-founded rumors about him that he might be suing him. And that's when I talked to Bernie Sprague on 1:30 in the morning on January the 3rd. And it was very interesting because Bernie, I picked up the phone, and at that late hour I didn't recognize the phone number, but I said, "Can I help you, sir?" And he goes, "Well, my name is Bernie Sprague. I was told I could trust you." And I says, "Well, I don't know if you can. Who told you that?" He said, "Rick Hill." Now, Rick Hill is a national leader in Indian country and is a very close friend of mine. So that was my kind of password, that we could trust each other, even though I'd never met the man. They asked you to check out where they were sending their checks to when they weren't wiring them? Right. That was a very interesting point. Then I sat down on the edge of the bed and I said, "Bernie, let's talk." This conversation went on for quite a while, early in the morning on January the 3rd, and he goes, "Well, Tom, we were sending these large amounts of money." And I said, "Well, Bernie," I said, "be more specific." He says, "Well, there's this one check we were going to send. It's going to 611 Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast in Washington, D.C. It's Suite 375. Well, I've lived in D.C. for a number of years." And I said, "Bernie, with all due respect, there's nothing up at 611 Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast but nail salons, bars, and gas stations." He says, no. This is a reputable business. We're sending them to a large organization." So I said, "Bernie, I will drive up there, and I will take a picture of where you're sending it." So I drove up there, and I started to look around, and it's a Mailboxes R Us. It's now a UPS store, but at that time, it was the Mailboxes, et cetera. And I said, "Bernie..." The Mailboxes, et cetera. Exactly. That has the little mailboxes. The little mailboxes. And at that point exactly, I went in, and of course, looking for Suite 375 was a mailbox, and it was 8 inches across and 11 inches deep. Alex Gibney, talk about the significance of this. And David Sickey mentioned Michael Scanlon. Talk about the people around Jack Abramoff, because this isn't just by any means one individual story.
No, it's not. And one of the interesting things about Jack is a lot of people have painted him as a bad apple, but he's really kind of more spectacular evidence of a rotten barrel. And in terms of Mike Scanlon, who was his kind of key co-conspirator, Mike Scanlon was a guy who had worked as the press secretary of Tom DeLay. And then he came over to Jack's shop and then started setting up business on his own. And what they would do is Jack would go into an Indian client, and he would say, "Well, look, I'll charge you so much, but the guy you really need to hire is Mike Scanlon, because he does this grassroots work that you're really going to want to have." And then they would pay Scanlon, and then Scanlon would kick back about half his fee to Jack. But in terms of the bigger picture, it's interesting that Jack would get a number of staffers. He got staffers of John Doolittle to work for him, staffers of Bob Ney to work for him. And that's really the way it works in Washington, D.C. It's the revolving door. Lobbyists use relationships that staffers have with members. They take them over to their shop, and then that's how they get inside the members' offices. And Neil Volz? Neil Volz was a former chief of staff for Bob Ney, and he also came to work for Jack Abramoff at Greenberg Traurig. I want to play a last clip from your film, from Casino Jack, that looks at how Jack Abramoff got involved with the Coushatta Tribe in Texas.
Fire up the jet, baby. We're going to El Paso.
Fire up the jet, baby. We're going to El Paso. That refers to maybe the most cynical campaign involving Indian tribes that they were involved in.
Jack gave the caper a code name, Operation Open Doors, a plan to sell his services to a Texas tribe whose casino had just been shut down.
Michael Scanlon sends Abramoff a piece from the El Paso Times.
This was on the front page of today's paper while they'll be voting on our plan,
which is the plan to pay Abramoff and Scanlon to reopen the casino.
Abramoff replied, "Is life great or what?"
An excerpt of the new film, Casino Jack. It's Alex Gibney. He's here next to me. Tom Rodgers next to him, and David Sickey next to him. David Sickey, vice chair of the Coushatta Tribe. But Tom Rodgers, you're a lobbyist. Right. You're Blackfeet yourself. Right. Talk about this last deal, the Tigwa. Talk about also, I want to hear about the email that we're going back and forth that really blew this out into the public. This is probably, as Alex has raised it, is one of the saddest chapters, and complete betrayal of trust amongst all the tribes. The Tigwa tribe was, and you have to look at the political conditions in Texas, are very adverse for Native Americans. We used to have almost 30 tribes in Texas. We have 3 now, and for a reason. And what happened with the Tigwas, their economic situation was so dire that they were willing to hire somebody like Jack. Of course, not all the necessary due diligence was done, and I understand that. But what happened was that they were trying to have their casino operation open up where they could once again use their monies to educate their youth, provide health care. But what Jack and Mike did is they kind of a bait and switch on them. They were hired by them to help them open their casino, and then also the collateral effect of efforts to close casinos statewide had the impact of closing their casino. And so they got paid millions and millions of dollars at the same time as they read as on the front page of the El Paso newspaper when they were closing the casino and over 450 employees were being let go. They were sitting in their offices in Washington, D.C., reading these newspaper articles of fire up the jet baby, let's go back out to El Paso and rebuild them. And the cynicism was over the top.
And the names that they were calling Native Americans in their emails, Alex?
Well, yeah, there's a rather shocking series of exchanges in terms, I mean, Jack routinely referred to a lot of his clients in really derogatory terms, and this was certainly no exception.
Ralph Reed was head of the Christian Coalition, so they're working to close the tribes to get more money to fight to reopen them.
Well, what happened was actually Jack was hired by a tribe out of Louisiana, in fact, under a previous administration, the Coushatta Tribe, to try to shut down the casino of a tribe just outside of Houston. And Ralph would often employ Ralph Reed, who was, in theory, radically opposed to gambling. You call it a cancer on the body politic. But in fact, what would happen is Jack would hire Ralph to beat the drum against gambling in a religious way, but would never disclose that, in fact, Ralph was being paid millions of dollars. I think he ultimately got $7 million from casinos. So that they were basically playing one casino off of another. And it was Ralph's campaign and also and his relationship with now Senator John Cornyn, then Attorney General John Cornyn, that led to the shutting down of tribal casinos in Texas. And then once they were shut down, then Jack went to the Tigwa tribe and said, hey, you guys have been shut down. How about hiring me to open you up?
Then we only have a minute, but the death certificates, Tom?
That is a disturbing thing is, in corporate America, yes, there is insurance policies called corporate-owned life insurance. But once again, Jack and Mike took this to another level. Our elders in our society are incredibly respected. They teach us. What these people did was beyond. They asked the Tigwas to take out life insurance policies on our elders. And once they died, then they would pay those benefits to them to pay their lobbying fees.
They would pay the benefits to
Jack and Mike to pay the lobbying fees.
I have to say, I find this unbelievably extreme, but I should note that this is a rather common practice. AIG used to do this all the time. It's one of those, and in fact, many investment banks have huge programs for this, where they buy life insurance policies from people. It's staggering. It's shocking.
We only have a minute. Very quickly, the reforms that were passed in the wake of the Abramoff scandal. Do they mean anything?
No, I don't think the reforms passed in the wake of the Abramoff scandal really mean much of anything, because they haven't taken the money out of the system. We now have congressmen and senators who spend sometimes 2-3 days out of every week raising money. Well, how perverted is that in our system? Why should we be paying them to raise money? That's really the fundamental problem here. And deciding how and when lobbyists can have lunch or dinner with members is really not the point. The point is, how do you take the influence of money out of the system? That's really the key issue.
Well, I want to thank you all for being with us. Alex Gibney, Oscar-winning filmmaker. His new film just premiered here at the Sundance Film Festival. It's called Casino Jack, the United States of Money. Tom Rodgers, thank you for speaking out in this first national broadcast outside of the film that Alex has done. And thank you very much, David Sickey, Vice Chair of the Coushatta Tribe of Louisiana. And that does it for our broadcast. Democracy Now! Is produced by a remarkable team of people here in Utah as well as in New York. Special thanks to Mike Berkshire for the producer, Armata Angeli, Steve Martinez, Martinez, Nicole Salazar, Honey Masood, Robbie Karen, Mike DeFilippo, Peter Curries, Miguel Noguera, our engineers. Special thanks to Becca Staley, Julie Crosby, Nick Gillett, Hugh Grant, Dennis Moynihan, Brenda Murad, Miriam Bernard, Karen Renucci, Samantha Chambly. Our website's democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks.